Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Continental Club. Today is Back to Basics, a CM17 review. Let me put the camera on and I'll give you a proper hello. Here we go. Let's get this out of the way. There we are. Okay, so I'm Ann Hine, Embroidery Software Specialist for Janome America, and today I wanted to do a little review of our CM17. You know, it's January. Maybe we're starting some new habits. Maybe we need to go back and learn something or find something we've forgotten. So that's kind of what today is, a little bit of a refresher for you. It is the basics. There'll be a lot of other things coming as we go along this month. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but I'm just going to show you a few things about our CM17 that I just love and the features that are on there. So I'm going to switch over to my camera so you can see my screen. I may have to readjust the camera view in a minute here. Let me just see what's going on. There we go. Oh, looks pretty good. I do have a bit of glare because of my, these screens are so shiny bright, and I did turn the color down on mine quite a bit so that it doesn't have quite as much glare. And I was going to hang sheets to cover everything, but it's just too complicated. So anyways, so let's get to our review. I want to start with the set mode right down here, because I think that's really important that people know where the set mode is. It's this little gear down here. And in the set mode, there are two areas for general things for the machine that covers the whole machine, and then the sewing area, and then I'm not going to do the third area, which is the embroidery area. And of course you have the Wi-Fi over there too. We'll do embroidery at another time, but I'm just going to cover the general things and the sewing things. We're going to stay on the sewing side of the machine. So when you come in here, these are the things that you can change on the machine. So if you want to be in inches, you can change it here. I'm going to page backwards so I'm not putting my arm in front of you, and just point out a few things. Here's bobbin winding speed. I like to wind my bobbins fast so I can turn it up. If I'm winding a delicate thread or monofilament, I would come in here and turn it down so that it would be lower. All your sewing machine lights can be turned on and off. You can make them light, brighter or less bright in here as well. Down here, this is important, the auto off time setting. So what this does is when you're done sewing, if you don't turn your machine off and maybe you get distracted, you run upstairs to do something and then you don't come back, it will turn, mine is set for 7 hours. It'll turn off in 7 hours and it actually turned the machine off. Your screensaver comes up, but everything will be turned off with this. And then up here is the standby timer. Typically, I have my standby timer set on 1 so that it, because of my videoing, and then you can see my screensavers much quicker. I have it set at least 21 minutes today so that while I'm working, I don't have to keep touching the screen to turn it back on. And of course, I have my screensaver turned on. I've done videos on how to put your pictures on your screensaver. So if you want to find those are on the Janome Artistic Digitizer Facebook page. So you're welcome to go there and look for those. Let me see what else here. We're back to the first page. So I'm going to come up here and go to the next page. I don't touch OK until I get all done with all my changes. And then I'm going to come over here. And on page 1, just to let you know, if thread cut after auto lock is turned on, what that does is whenever you touch your scissor button, it cuts your lock button. It will automatically cut your threads and lift. So sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it isn't. So I usually keep mine in the off position. Down here, this is really important too. Foot height for pivoting. We do have the pivot feature here and we can set it to different heights. So if we're doing things, we can set it right at the stitch as well, but this is for all pivoting. So if you like it at a certain height, instead of having to change it, you can just come in here and make your change. Any changes you make in here are for the whole machine, not just a particular stitch. If you're working on a particular stitch and you make a change, it's just for that stitch. So you don't have to come over here to do a lot of things. Resume mode should be turned on and favorite stitch should be turned on. And I'm going to show you why favorite stitch should be turned on. Your ASR information is over here for sensitivity and the variable zigzag, ASR, and the overspeed warning. So you can come in here and make those adjustments here. Now I'm going to start at the bottom of this. This is assist in inserting, removing fabric. You know how on our machine our feed dogs go down when we stop. You know, when the foot comes up, the feed dogs go down. And that's so you can pull your fabrics in and out easily and not catch on the feed dogs. Because our feed dogs now are little pointier. They're a little pointier now. So some people don't like that. They want to keep those feed dogs up all the time. And so you can turn it back on over here. And so if you need that on, you can do it there. Bobbin thread remaining sensor. This is important too. This is on the sewing side of things. Once I have it turned on, so it will let me know when my bobbin thread is low. And then if I want to finish off a bobbin, if it won't let me go any further, I just have a little bit more to stitch, I can turn it off over here and then finish out my thing, and then I just turn it back on. These are your startup speed of your foot control and your start stop button. I have mine all the way to fast because I need the speed. Then I can use my speed slider to adjust it wherever I want. This is for the speed slider, and this is for your foot control. I don't use my foot control very often, but I do use my speed slider, and I like to adjust there. And then we are back to the beginning again. So I'm going to touch OK to make sure I save all my saves. And then it's back here to our screen. Now, going up a little in here is our adjust window right here. And this is where you would change the stitch. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit too, if I can get that in here. There we go. I have to get my camera to stop wiggling. Oh man, it doesn't want to, it's on a cord, so it doesn't like the, there we go. So in here, I can change my, this is my stitch width or needle position. This is the length of my stitch, and this is the tension, and this is my presser foot pressure. I can also do those same things over here. I'm going to pick my camera up gently. I can also do those same things right here in the center, which is really nice because while I'm sewing, I don't have to reach way over there. I can just do it right from here. So let me rest my camera a little bit here and show you. When I go to change these, sometimes I want my needle all the way to the right or all the way to the left. And so you don't have to go here and do this. You can just go all the way up. Or if you see these little dials over here, you can just turn the dial and it'll move it all the way wherever you want it to be. And this is the one for width. So if you like turning dials, you can go here. I like to just swipe it down like that so that it's either on the left side or the right side of my foot. Sometimes that's what I'm using. So that's why I like it there. And then when you get done, if you want to, just hit DFT. That's default. It sets it all back to default. Okay, so let me show you here in the adjust window over here, one of the things we have. I'm going to back out just a little bit so we can see. There we go. When you open the adjust window over here, it gives you those same things, but it adds the favorite stitch down here. So what that means is if I make any changes up here and I want to save them, say I don't like sewing at 2.4 as my stitch length, and I would rather be at maybe 3.0. So I'm going to move it up to 3.0 like that. And then I want to put it in my favorite stitch, so it's here. If you don't see this on your machine, that's because in your set mode, you didn't turn it on. So you need to turn it on to see it. So I'm going to touch right here. And then I'm going to put it in FS1. I could put it in FS2 if I want. I'm just going to put it in FS1. You can see it's in there because there's a bracket now around my 3. I'm going to close this window. And then if I go to this stitch over here, and then I go back to my first stitch, you can see that the change is saved here. You can save all these positions in your favorite stitch. So if you go back to your favorite stitch, let's go back in here so I can see it. I'm going to open it up so we can see it. So you can see all the things you can save in there. Depending on your stitch, you may have more things that you can save in there. If you want to delete it, you touch the trash can. It opens the window, and then you touch the one you want to delete, and it deletes it. And I'm going to close this window, and I can put it back to default. It won't go back to default because it's just going to go back to an unsaved stitch. Okay, so you have to remember if you want it to back to the default, you have to touch there. The other thing while I'm here, so I don't forget it later, Do you know how sometimes when we're sewing, we touch the lock button here by mistake, and it won't let you do anything until you uh, cancel out your stitch? Well, you don't have to choose another stitch and come back. You can choose your same stitch and just have it there, and then it turns that off. So that's like a quick thing. A lot of times, we bump that occasionally when I sew standing up, so I use my start-stop button, so sometimes I bump that by mistake. So it happens with things that you're doing. Okay, so that's where you adjust your stitch, whether you're doing it here or in the menu that's up there. Okay, so you remember that, or the little knobs. All your stitches are in here, and you can page through them with the arrows. You can also go to the top. Let me zoom back out a little bit so we can see more of the top. Up here, you can change to different groupings of stitches. And then, of course, you would page through. But what I like is this piece of paper right down here. Look at this. I don't know if you've ever touched that. These are all your stitches, and I could just page through all of them like this. I picked that one, and it brings it right in. So I could go back to the paper. It takes me right back to that page. Maybe I want to go to the kangaroo, and I've got that one. So for me, I like this part down here. I like to see all my stitches instead of trying to page through, one at a time. Because the other way, when you're up here, you have to page through like this. You just have to keep paging through. There, it's less paging because there's more on the page. Okay, so it's one of those things: 6 of one, half a dozen of the other of what you like to do. And then across the very top of our machine, we have 2 more things I want to show. 3. This is a go back button here, and it takes back where I was. And then this is where you would go into your ordinary sewing. Well, we're in ordinary sewing applications, and embroidery mode. So if we go into sewing applications, you'll find in here sewing side things, you'll find quilting things, and you'll find your foot options as well. So what's nice about this is when you select this, it's like a little sewing helper. When you want to do a rolled hem, it shows you the foot. It gives you different choices for that rolled hem. Of course, you always have the option to make changes in your rolled hem. And if you want your pivot function on or off, you can turn it on or off right there. Now going into the quilting section, because a lot of us are quilting, and maybe we are going to do some patchwork, which opens up first. Now the difference is in here, this stitching in here, this is for memorized piecing. So that means if you're doing a lot of 2-inch squares and you have a whole stack of them, you could come in here and you can stitch one of those seams and save the length of the seam. And then you can just unplug your foot control and use your start-stop button. It'll sew and stop. Just push your next one under, push the start button, sew and stop. It's amazing when you have a lot to do. But a lot of us are free motioning. So I'm going to come in here, or we're doing ruler work. But when we come in here, we have all of these choices. We have the option. It gives us the PDH foot that's along the top. Down here, these are going to be our non-hopping feet, the QC and QO, and we have different ones we could use with that. But we also have our ASR. And my ASR is highlighted because I do have it plugged in at the moment, because I wanted you to see this. If you don't see the ASR there, you have to plug in your ASR, and then you have to select your ASR. And see, you don't see it on the top. You'll see it down here on the second line, stitch 3. You can use it with 4, or you can even use it with 5. So let's turn it on. There we go. These are your ASR feet right there. So your ASR is all set. You just have the attention and stitch length in here that you can change. And of course, you still can change the height of your foot. So that's in that area too. So that's just something to remember. If you don't have your ASR plugged in, you want to make sure you plug it in, and then you'll see it down there. I'm going to turn it off. The other thing is stitch plates seem to confuse everyone as well. And if you want to do any stitch with width, always think of this. I want something wide. So that would be your zigzag plate. It's a wide opening. And it would show you on here. See, this is showing a zigzag thing here, though I would probably put my straight stitch plate on, And when I put my straight stitch plate on, it changes to a little dot there. And when I put my HP plate on, it says HP, it only lets me go to certain places. So if you ever think, sometimes people think they broke their machine, but they haven't. It's just their stitch plates, and our stitch plates are so easy to take on and off. Also in your settings, you can set how long that stays up when you open up your stitch plate on there. So let's go back to there's one other menu. I'm going to go just back here to ordinary sewing, and then the 3-line menu over here. There's a few more options. This is quick stitch select. If you knew the stitch number and letter, you could type it in here, but I showed you the really shortcut down here, so you don't have to. You could do that if you like. And then also what's in here is the Quilt Block Advisor. We're going to be having some more videos on how to use Quilt Block Advisor. It's for creating quilt blocks, and you put in your measurements, and the software in here tells you how many you need and so forth for that size. So that's pretty neat. And there's more directions in the manual, and I think also on the global page. So what I've opened this really for is for the manual dual feed setting. And the manual dual feed, if you wanted to use your AccuFeed, which is dual feed, you want to use it for a decorative stitch or anything that doesn't come up when you choose AccuFeed, you would choose you don't turn it on, you choose your stitch, come in here and turn on AccuFeed, and then you get the adjusting here. What this means is this is adjusting the upper feed of your feed dogs when you're using your AccuFeed foot. Some machines have a dial on the side. Now this is all electronic in here. So for decorative stitches, you come in here to adjust, to turn it on and adjust. And then and the other thing down here are these buttons. These are all under the 3-line buttons. This moves your hoop connector to the middle. This moves the hoop connector to the top. And then when you choose one of those, the third one over here brings it to the front. So if you're packing your machine, you can put it there. If you want it out of the way, you can touch there. So that's under our 3-line menu right there. So let me just touch, I'm going to just put this back to, I'm going to turn it off actually. There we go. And I'm going to go okay. If I turned my AccuFeed on here, that would be this one here. And make sure I have my foot attached. I would attach my foot, and then in my right here is where I would adjust that for my AccuFeed. It adjusts the rate of speed to match, maybe it's adjusting the bottom to match the top on there. And you have your hook plugged in. So I'm going to turn that off. There we go. Anytime you get those messages, the machine doesn't know what foot you have on. It knows what plate you have on, but it does not know what foot you have on. So this is a recommendation of a foot, but it's up to you what you put on your machine, okay? The other thing that's here is this little one right here, okay? This is different from, this is the presser foot pressure. This is floating mode. And when you select floating mode, it does only allow you to use a couple of stitches here. And if you were piecing and using your 1/4-inch stitch under your decorative, which a lot of us do, you could come in here, and what it does is you can raise the foot right here. You can raise the foot up slightly above your fabric and still keep the same presser foot pressure. So if you're going along and you're going to have some thick areas, or you're sewing a lot of thick areas, you can raise it up from the beginning and start that way. So that's what that is for. That is the floating mode right there. Okay, so we're going to go back to sewing right here. Now, if you have questions, please post them in the comments. I have my back to my screen, so I can't watch my comments today, so I will watch them in the comments afterwards, and I'll make any answers there. If there's something I didn't show and you want to know about it, I can show you there. Let me see. We did the tour. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to move my camera over to my machine so that you can see me stitching. And I want to show you a couple of stitches. Now this is just a straight stitch, right? And if we wanted to reverse at the beginning or end, we would have to touch our reverse. But I like to use stitch 2. Stitch 2 has a little reverse at the beginning. It's automatic. And then when you get to the end of your seam, it has a little arrow here. That means you can go ahead and touch the reverse on your keypad, and it will reverse and do your stitches right there. Now, if you're using your foot control, you have to remember to keep your foot on the pedal. After you touch this, put your foot back on the pedal. The machine will do its reversing and it will stop. Okay, and then you can take your foot. I use my start stop button, so it does it automatically. The other one I want to show you is number 3. This is stitch number 3. This has a locking stitch at the beginning and the end of it. And you can see I changed this one to have a stitch. It's one of my favorite stitches. I have it at 3.0 at the moment. It does a locking stitch at the beginning and the end. And you can set how many times your needle's going to go up and down to make your lock stitch here at the beginning and the end of your piece. So that's up to you how you want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my machine set up. I'm going to move my camera over here so you guys can see what's happening over here. And I have to turn my camera in a downward position. Let's see if it'll go in that position today. Hang on, there we go. And I'm gonna, let's see if it'll stay there. All right, so let me see if I can get, there it is. Get the camera back, move my legs, there we go. Okay, there we go. I'll move it to the front in a minute so you can see from the front. So this is the stitch number 2. And one thing you'll notice when I get done, I do have my top thread pulled to the side and in the side holder right there. Now it's an old school thing. And when you're sewing, you should do that because it helps alleviate that big nest on the bottom. It gives your thread a little bit more tension. And usually I have it like under my foot and up in here like that. And then I'm just going to hit my start button. I am going pretty slow, so it's going to start here. It's saying make sure the proper presser foot is attached. Yes, it is. And it needs to lower the presser foot because I had it up before on my own. There we go. Press start. Yes, I do have the right one. Oh, wait a minute. There is something wrong. There we go. Let me put this back. There we go. Now we should be able to go. Okay. It did this earlier. I don't know why it's giving this message. See if that resets it. And we try again. All right, let me turn it off and recycle this. For some reason, it's having a little hiccup. And we'll see if that fixes it. And it should resume back to the one I was at, hopefully. If not, I'll choose it and we'll go from there. Okay. There we go. All right, let me see what's happening with this. Let me fix this. I'm going to take a little. Okay, so the culprit was I had my ASR plugged in. So that's why it wouldn't let me. I plugged it in earlier and forgot it was back there. See, we all do that kind of thing. Let me go back to my stitch and we should be good to go now. There it is. So it's going to go forward and then backward. And then it's going to come forward. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. And when it gets down here, I'm going to hit reverse. And it does the reverse all on its own. No hands. Look at that. And then I'm going to clip my thread. I'm going to pull it to the back like this. I can take this thread and stick it up there. Well, typically it's easier to grab that thread when my hands aren't so dry and wintry. There we go. So let's look at the back side of this. There we go. This is the start and this is the end. Very nice and neat on the back. I have a little extra thread in there. Makes a really nice reverse. So I'm going to try stitch number 2. That's the one with the locking stitch in it. And I'm going to turn my speed just a little bit down. Here we go. I'm going to start it. It's doing its locking stitch. Moves back just a little bit. It's going to come down here. Anywhere I want to stop it, I'm just going to hit the reverse and it'll do the locking stitches down here. And then I can hit my scissor button, pull this to the back, and there we go. Very nice that way. And I can stick this back up there. All right, the next thing I want to show you is something under the applique stitches. So I'm going to come back to the machine just a little bit here, the front of the machine, so you can see this. We are going to go and use the tab here for decorative, because applique is the first one. And under the applique stitches, we have the width of our stitch, the length of our stitch, tension, and then we have this one. Okay, that is needle position. That can move your whole design left or right to get closer to your fabric. Okay, and so let me go ahead and I'm going to come over here and put my camera back in this position. Let's see, hang on a second. There we go. And I might be able to put it in front. I have to hold it. All right, so this is going to be my applique fabric right here. And I'm going to change my foot. So when I do applique, you can use your F foot. That's what shows on the screen. The F foot or F2, they both have a channel back here. So your stitches flow under that little channel. So I'm going to pop this off. I can put that foot on, or if I have my applique foot, it's a little shorter, goes this way. It's a little bit shorter, so if you're going around curves, it's a little helpful to go around curves. These kind of feet with the little bar in the back, they, I'll have to move my thread in a minute. They go on the back of your foot. There's a little opening back there. Let's get this up there. Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to put my camera down because I cannot hold and do, I can't do that one-handed. Here we go. And pull that up. There we go. All right. And I'm putting that on because I want to show you something about that foot. We all know the other one, how it works, but this one has some lines in there, which are very nice. I'm going to pull my top thread over here. It's gotten quite long on me. Put it up in here. Oops. There we go. Let's get the tail out of the way. Okay. So I'm just going to put my fabric underneath there and put my foot down. So I kind of went like this, and then I put my foot down. And I'm like, maybe I have a great big applique project I'm working on, but I don't want to lift up the foot again to move it. So I can go to my, I can go to the one where it's needle position, and I could use the minus, and it will bring the needle closer to where I'm stitching. So right now I'm going to bring down my needle so you can see. It's in the yellow part. Can you see that? It's in the yellow part. And I'm using my thumb wheel. I'm going to bring it back up. And then I'm just going to move the needle to the left. You see it moving over? I think I have to go a couple more. There we go. And then I'm just going to put this down. Now it aligns right with the edge of my applique, and I can start stitching at this point. So let's see what we've got going here. I'm not even holding that. It's sewing so straight. I'm going to cut my thread, and I'm going to back this out. Put that thread up here and see if you can see. Let me move my camera down so you can see this better. There you go. So you can see my applique right on the edge. I was able to bring it right over without moving my fabric back and forth. So that to me is a great thing. So there's a lot of little things like this on the machine that I like. One last thing I'm going to show you up here are these magnets. Now today I don't have as many of my little things on there, but I love those magnets up there for my scissors, my tweezers, my screwdriver, any needles that I've taken out. I do have a little needle saver that I hang on this one, and I can stick my needles in there. It has embroidered on it different letters for the different color needles, so I can have those in there. All right, so let me put my camera down here for a minute, and then I'm going to turn the other camera back on and say my goodbyes. So let's see what we've got going over here. Let's see, get back to this one. There we go. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that learning. Maybe you learned a few things, or maybe just a refresher to use some of the other features. You know, we straight stitch always comes up first, and we just, boop, we're ready to go. Even I forget, like, oh wait, I wish I could swap the two and put the second stitch on the first one. That would, that would be good because it would be right there. But that is a very, very handy stitch. Now, if you're stitching with it, the number 2 stitch where it has the reverse at the beginning and the end. If you get to the end of your piece and you don't want to reverse, you don't have to. Just don't touch the reverse button, pull your fabric out, cut your threads. So you don't have to use the other part of it, but you do have to make sure you push the reverse if you want to engage it to do its own little backup. And it's so perfect when it does it. It just, right, I can never back up that beautifully whenever I'm stitching. So I just love that. And then the little locking stitch is very handy for different things that you're doing. Maybe you just need to hold a couple things together at the beginning or the end so the threads don't come out as you're working on something. Maybe you're manipulating your fabric. You don't want a whole reverse stitch there, but you just want a little tacking. Plus, you can change how many stitches you have at the top and the bottom. To me, that's such a bonus. So Genomi's put a lot of neat things in the machine. Today was just a few of my favorite things that I like and help make my day better. So thank you for joining me in the studio. Hope to see you again soon. Probably next week, I'll be back again with another segment. Bye for now.